Ryan Hayes thought the hardest part of single fatherhood was bedtime battles and packed lunches. He was wrong. Sitting across from Ava Sinclair, a CEO, who commanded boardrooms with ruthless precision, he watched her face drain of color as she confessed she had 2 children. He knew that look. The bracing for impact. The expectation of rejection. Because in the dating world, kids weren't adorable. They were deal breakers. But when Ryan leaned forward and said, "I have a son," so something shifted. 2 broken families, 1 impossible dinner, and a confession that would change everything neither of them saw coming. If you want to see how these 2 guarded hearts collide, stay with me until the end. Hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story reaches. Ryan Hayes had exactly 12 minutes before he needed to leave. He stood in his cramped bathroom, razor in hand, staring at his reflection with the kind of resigned frustration that came from years of trying and failing to look like he had his life together. The bags under his eyes told a different story than the one he'd rehearsed for tonight. They spoke of 5 a.m. wake-ups, microwaved dinners, and the particular exhaustion that came from being both mother and father to a 7-year-old who asked approximately 400 questions per hour. "Dad? Break Tommy man." Ryan closed his eyes. "Of course." "Yeah, buddy? Can I have ice cream? Ma." "It's 6:30. That's not a no." Ryan set down the razor and walked into the hallway, where his son Milo stood in dinosaur pajamas, holding an empty bowl like it was evidence in a trial. The kid had his mother's dark curls and Ryan's stubborn chin, and he wielded both with devastating effectiveness. "It's a no," Ryan said, though his voice lacked conviction. "But Mrs. Patterson's coming, and she lets me have ice cream. Mrs. Patterson also lets you watch cartoons until 9. Mrs. Patterson has questionable judgment. Then why do you pay her?" Ryan grabbed a towel and wiped shaving cream off his neck. "Because she shows up. Now go brush your teeth." "Are you going on a date?" The question landed like a rock through a window. Ryan had deliberately avoided this conversation, mostly because he didn't know how to have it. Milo had never known his parents together. Ryan's ex-wife, Chelsea, had left when Milo was 2, packed her bags on a Tuesday morning, and moved to Portland with a guy she'd met at yoga. No fight, no drama, just a quiet, devastating exit that still felt unreal 5 years later. "Yeah, Ryan said finally. "I'm meeting someone for dinner." Milo's face scrunched up. "A girl? A woman? Yes. Is she nice?" Ryan had no idea. He'd met Ava Sinclair exactly once, 3 weeks ago at a charity event his boss had forced him to attend. She'd been standing near the silent auction table, wearing a black dress that probably cost more than his rent, looking like she'd rather be anywhere else. Ryan had liked that about her immediately. The barely concealed impatience, the way she checked her phone like she was timing an escape. They talked for maybe 10 minutes. She was sharp, funny in a dry way that caught him off guard. And she hadn't asked him a single boring question about what he did for a living. When she'd suggested dinner, Ryan had assumed she was being polite. When she'd actually texted him 3 days later with a restaurant name and time, he'd stared at his phone for a full minute before responding. "I think so," Ryan said. "Do you like her?" "I don't know her yet." "Then why are you going?" "Because I'm 32 and lonely. Because I haven't been on a date in 2 years. Because sometimes I look at my life and wonder if this is it. Work and parenting and nothing else until Milo goes to college, and I'm too old to remember what I wanted in the first place." "Because it's nice to meet new people," Ryan said instead. Milo looked unconvinced, but he shuffled off toward the bathroom. Ryan heard the faucet turn on, which meant his son was either brushing his teeth or flooding the sink. Both were equally possible. By the time Mrs. Patterson arrived, a cheerful woman in her 60s who treated babysitting like a competitive sport, Ryan was running late. He kissed Milo on the head, ignored the ice cream negotiation happening behind him, and drove downtown with the kind of low-grade anxiety that made his hands grip the steering wheel too tight. The restaurant was one of those places with exposed brick and waiters who introduced themselves like you were supposed to care. Ryan spotted Ava immediately. She was at a corner table, already seated, scrolling through her phone with the focused intensity of someone putting out fires remotely. She looked up as he approached, and for a second, Ryan forgot how to walk like a normal person. Ava Sinclair was beautiful in a way that felt almost unfair. Sharp cheekbones, dark hair pulled back in a way that looked effortless, but probably wasn't, and eyes that assessed him with the same precision she probably used to evaluate quarterly reports. She wore a deep blue blouse and minimal jewelry, and when she stood to shake his hand, Ryan noticed she was taller than he remembered. "Ryan," she said. Not a question, a confirmation. "Ava, sorry I'm late. You're not. I was early." She sat back down, gesturing to the chair across from her. "I have a pathological need to arrive 15 minutes before everything." Ryan sat, feeling slightly less like he was about to fail a test he hadn't studied for. "That's efficient?" "It's neurotic, but we can call it efficient if it makes you feel better." The waiter appeared, launching into a monologue about seasonal ingredients that Ryan immediately stopped listening to. He ordered a beer. Ava ordered wine. When they were alone again, the silence stretched just long enough to become uncomfortable. "So," Ava said, folding her hands on the table, "how does this work? Do we start with small talk or skip straight to the part where we decide if we like each other?" Ryan laughed before he could stop himself. "Is there a script I'm supposed to follow? If there is, no one gave it to me. I've been doing this wrong for years." "Doing what wrong?" "Dating, meeting people, pretending I care about their opinions on craft beer or travel destinations." She paused, studying him. "You seem nervous." "I am nervous." "Why?" "Because I haven't done this in a while." "Define a while." 2 years. Ava raised an eyebrow. "That's not that long." "It feels long when your most frequent conversation partner is 7 years old and obsessed with dinosaurs." The words were out before Ryan could stop them, and he immediately regretted it. "You weren't supposed to lead with the kid thing. That was dating 101. You eased into it, maybe brought it up over dessert, softened the blow with enough charm that it didn't feel like a liability." But Ava didn't flinch. If anything, she looked intrigued. "You have a son," she said. "Yeah, Milo. He's 7. "Does he actually know a lot about dinosaurs, or is it one of those things where kids just like saying the names?" Ryan relaxed slightly. "He knows a disturbing amount. I can't watch Jurassic Park anymore without him fact-checking every scene." "That sounds exhausting." "It is, but he's good company." Ava took a sip of her wine, and Ryan couldn't read her expression. Most women he'd dated, back when he'd dated, had a specific reaction to the single dad revelation. Polite interest masking immediate calculation. How much baggage does this guy have? How much of my life will this kid consume? Is this worth it? But Ava just nodded, like he'd told her he had a dog or a hobby that took up weekends. "What about you?" Ryan asked, more to fill the silence than because he expected anything revelatory. "Any dinosaur experts in your life?" Ava's face changed. It was subtle, a tightening around her mouth, a shift in her posture. But Ryan saw it. She set down her wine glass and looked at him with an expression that was part defiance, part resignation. "I have 2 kids," she said. Ryan blinked. "Oh, a daughter who's 9 and a son who's 6. That's a lot." "I know." Ava's voice was steady, but her fingers twisted the stem of her wine glass. "Most people bail at this point, or they pretend it's fine and then ghost me after dessert. So if you want to leave, now's the time. I won't take it personally." Ryan stared at her. He thought about Milo at home, probably conning Mrs. Patterson into a second bowl of ice cream. He thought about every time he'd mentioned his son on a date and watched interest drain from someone's face like water from a cracked cup. He thought about how exhausting it was to be rejected for something that was the best part of his life. "I'm not leaving," Ryan said. Ava looked at him like she was trying to find the lie. "You're not? Why would I? You just told me you get it." "Get what?" "The whole impossible schedule thing. The guilt. The constant feeling that you're failing at everything because you can't be in 2 places at once." Ryan leaned forward. "I spent 20 minutes tonight trying to convince my kid that ice cream isn't dinner. Meanwhile, I'm sitting here wondering if I'm even doing this right. If I'm allowed to want something that isn't about him for 5 seconds. Walked it. Ava's expression softened. "Do your hands ever shake when you're putting them to bed? Like your body's just done?" "Every night." "Me too." Something shifted between them. Not attraction, exactly, though that was there humming under the surface, but recognition. The specific loneliness of doing it alone, of being the only one who showed up day after day with no backup and no breaks. The waiter returned, forcing them to order food neither of them particularly wanted. When he left, Ava shook her head, almost laughing. "This is the weirdest first date I've ever been on," she said. "Is it going badly?" "No, that's what's weird." Yeah. They talked through dinner, actually talked, the way Ryan hadn't talked to another adult in months. Ava told him about her company, a tech firm she'd built from nothing and now ran with the kind of precision that made investors nervous and competitors envious. She worked 60-hour weeks, missed soccer games, and paid a nanny more than most people's salaries just to keep the logistics from imploding. "My daughter asked me last week if I loved my job more than I loved her," Ava said quietly. "I didn't know how to answer that." "What did you say?" "I said I loved her more than anything, but I don't think she believed me." Ryan told her about his job, middle management at a logistics company, the kind of work that paid the bills but didn't inspire much else. He told her about Chelsea leaving, about the first year of solo parenting when he'd barely slept and lived off microwaved burritos, about the time Milo had asked why other kids had moms, and he'd had to explain that sometimes families looked different and it was okay. "I lied," Ryan admitted. "I told him it was okay, but I don't know if it is. Does he seem okay?" "Most days, but I don't know what I'm missing, what he's not telling me because he thinks it'll hurt my feelings." Ava reached across the table, not quite touching his hand, but close. "You're doing better than you think. How do you know?" "Because you're here. Because you're trying." The conversation drifted after that, lighter, but no less real. They discovered they both hated small talk, loved old movies, and had the same irrational fear of parent-teacher conferences. By the time dessert arrived, which neither of them touched, Ryan realized he'd lost track of time entirely. "I should get back," Ava said eventually, though she didn't move. "My nanny charges overtime after 10. "Yeah, Mrs. Patterson probably has Milo watching R-rated movies by now," said. They stood, and Ryan caught himself not wanting the night to end. It was a strange feeling, wanting more when he'd spent the last 2 years convincing himself he didn't have room for more. Outside, the street was quieter. Ava pulled her coat tight against the October chill, and for a moment they just stood there, two people who'd stumbled into something neither of them had planned for. "Can I ask you something?" Ava said. "Sure." "Why did you say yes to tonight?" Ryan thought about it. "Because I wanted to remember what it felt like to be just me. Not Milo's dad. Not the guy who forgot to pack lunches. Just me." "Did it work?" "I don't know yet." Ava smiled. A real smile this time, not the polite mask she'd worn when he arrived. "Text me when you figure it out." "Yes." She walked to her car and Ryan stood there long enough to feel ridiculous. When he finally got in his own car and checked his phone, there were 3 messages from Mrs. Patterson and one from Milo that just said "Goodnight, Dad." He sat there in the parking lot, engine running, and realized he was smiling. The second date happened almost by accident. Ava texted him 4 days later, a simple message. "Coffee tomorrow? I have 45 minutes between meetings." They met at a place near her office, one of those aggressively hip cafes where the barista looked personally offended by Ryan's order. Ava was already there, laptop open, typing with the kind of speed that suggested someone's job was on the line. "Sorry," she said without looking up. "Give me 30 seconds. Ryan waited, ordered a coffee that cost more than lunch, watched Ava's fingers fly across the keyboard like she was defusing a bomb. "Done," she said finally, snapping the laptop shut. "She eats. Crisis averted." "What kind of crisis?" "The kind where a client threatens to pull a contract because someone used the wrong font in a presentation." "People do that?" "People do everything. You'd be amazed how much money hinges on kerning." They talked for 47 minutes. Ryan timed it without meaning to. Ava had a board meeting at 11. Ryan had a conference call he'd already rescheduled twice. But they sat there anyway, stretching time like it was something they could control. "How's Milo?" Ava asked. "Currently convinced he's going to be a paleontologist. Or a firefighter. Or both." "Seems reasonable." "He also asked if you were my girlfriend." Ava paused mid-sip. "What did you say?" I said you were someone I was getting to know. Very diplomatic. He's 7. I figured I'd keep it vague. Ava set down her cup, her expression shifting into something more serious. My daughter asked about you too. What did you tell her? That I met someone, that I liked him, that I didn't know what happened next. The honesty of it hit Ryan harder than he expected. Do you? Like me? I think so. It's hard to tell. I'm not good at this. At what? Well, letting people in. I've spent the last 4 years building walls. It's efficient. Lonely, though. Ava looked at him, and for a second, Ryan saw past the CEO exterior to the person underneath, someone just as tired, just as uncertain as he was. Yeah, she said quietly. It is. They left the cafe together, walking half a block before Ava had to turn toward her office. She stopped at the corner, hands in her coat pockets, looking at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. Same time next week? She asked. You asking me out? I'm scheduling you in. There's a difference. Ryan laughed. Yeah, same time next week. He watched her walk away, and this time, he didn't feel ridiculous. He felt something else, something close to hope, but more fragile. Like if he held it too tight, it might break. The third date was dinner again, but this time at a place Ava picked, quieter, less pretentious, with waiters who didn't perform their specials like audition monologues. They sat in a booth in the back, and Ryan realized halfway through his pasta that he'd stopped being nervous. Tell me something true, Ava said suddenly. Ryan looked up. What? Oh, something you don't usually say. Something real set. He set down his fork, considering. I'm afraid I'm screwing up Milo. That he'll grow up and resent me for all the things I didn't do right. Like what? Like not giving him a mom. Like working too much. Like being tired all the time and pretending I'm not. Ava nodded slowly. I'm afraid my kids think I care more about my career than them. And I'm afraid they're right. Are they? Us. I don't know. I love them more than anything. But I also love what I built. And I don't know how to do both without failing at one of them. Ryan reached across the table, and this time, he took her hand. Her fingers were cold, and she didn't pull away. You're not failing, he said. How do you know? Because you're here. Because you're trying. Ava gave him a look that was half gratitude, half disbelief. You said that last time. It's still true. They stayed until the restaurant started closing, talking about everything and nothing, the logistics of parenting, the impossibility of work-life balance, the strange guilt that came with wanting something for yourself. When they finally left, Ava walked him to his car, and for the first time she kissed him. It was brief, almost tentative, but it felt like a door opening. I have to tell you something, Ava said when they pulled apart. Ryan's stomach dropped. Okay, that. I haven't introduced anyone to my kids in 3 years, not since their dad left. Ava, I'm not saying we're there yet, but if we keep doing this, eventually we will be, and I need to know if that's something you're ready for. Ryan thought about Milo at home, probably asleep by now, probably clutching the stuffed triceratops he refused to admit he still needed. He thought about what it would mean to bring someone into that world, someone else's chaos mixing with his own. I don't know if I'm ready, Ryan said honestly, but I want to try. Ava nodded, and Ryan saw the relief in her face, the same relief he felt. Okay, she said. Then let's try. Over the next 6 weeks, they fell into a rhythm, texts between meetings, phone calls after bedtime, coffee dates that turned into lunch dates that turned into stolen hours whenever their schedules miraculously aligned. It wasn't easy. Nothing about their lives was easy. But it worked in the small, fragile way new things worked when both people actually wanted them to. Ryan learned that Ava hated mornings but loved thunderstorms, that she'd built her company from a single client and a laptop in her apartment, that she still felt like an imposter most days, like someone was going to realize she didn't know what she was doing and take it all away. Ava learned that Ryan played guitar badly but enthusiastically, that he'd wanted to be a writer before Milo was born and pragmatism kicked in, that he still kept a notebook in his car filled with half-finished sentences he told himself he'd finish someday. They didn't talk about the future. They didn't make plans beyond next week. But somewhere in the space between texts and coffee and late-night phone calls, something solidified. And then Ava said the thing Ryan had been dreading and hoping for in equal measure. I want you to meet my kids. They were in his car, parked outside her house after dinner. Ryan's hands tightened on the steering wheel. You sure? No, but I want to try anyway. When? This weekend. Nothing formal, just come over. We'll order pizza. You can meet Emma and Leo and see if you run screaming. Ryan looked at her, and he saw the fear underneath the confidence. The same fear he carried every time he thought about bringing someone into Milo's life. Okay, he said, but only if you meet Milo, too. Ava's eyes widened. Really? Fair's fair. She laughed, a real laugh, the kind that made her whole face change. This is terrifying. Yeah, it is. But they did it anyway. The following Saturday, Ryan stood on Ava's front porch with a pizza he'd probably overpaid for and a stomach full of anxiety that felt like swallowing stones. The door opened before he could knock. Emma stood there, 9 years old, dark hair like her mother's, eyes that assessed him with the same precision. You're Ryan, she said. Not a question. I am. You must be Emma. Mom says you have a kid. I do. His name's Milo. He's 7. Does he like pizza? He lives for pizza. Emma nodded, apparently satisfied, and stepped aside to let him in. Ava's house was chaos in the best way. Toys scattered across the living room, artwork taped to the walls, the specific kind of mess that came from actual living. Leo, her 6-year-old son, was on the couch watching cartoons with the volume too loud. He looked up when Ryan entered, stared for approximately 3 seconds, and went back to his show. That went well? Ava said, appearing from the kitchen. She looked nervous in a way Ryan had never seen, like she was waiting for him to judge her entire life based on the state of her living room. It's perfect, Ryan said. It's a disaster. Same thing. They ate pizza. Emma asked Ryan 47 questions about Milo, dinosaurs, and whether he knew how to braid hair. He didn't. Leo mostly ignored him, which Ryan took as a good sign. And somewhere between the second and third slice, Ryan realized he wasn't terrified anymore. He was hopeful. The next day, Ava came to his apartment. Milo answered the door, looked up at her with wide eyes, and said, Are you Dad's friend? I am, Ava said, crouching down to his level. Are you Milo? Yeah, do you like dinosaurs? I don't know a lot about them, but I'd like to learn. Milo's face lit up, and just like that, Ryan knew it was going to be okay. They spent the afternoon at the park, Ryan and Ava on a bench, while Milo showed Emma and Leo his elaborate dinosaur theories. The kids circled each other warily at first, but by the time the sun started setting, they were playing some incomprehensible game that involved a lot of running and shrieking. They're going to be okay, Ava said, watching them. Yeah, Ryan said. I think they are. And for the first time in 2 years, Ryan let himself believe that maybe, just maybe, he was allowed to be happy. Not despite being a single dad, but because he'd found someone who understood what that meant. The first real fight happened 3 weeks later, on a Tuesday that started badly and got worse. Ryan had overslept. His alarm hadn't gone off, or he'd turned it off in his sleep, or the universe had decided to test him. Whatever the reason, he woke up at 7:15 to find Milo standing next to his bed in yesterday's shirt, holding an empty cereal box. We're out of Cheerios, Milo said. Ryan stared at the ceiling, doing the math. School started at 8. He had a meeting at 9 he absolutely could not miss. Traffic would be hell, and he still needed to shower, get Milo dressed in clean clothes, and somehow conjure breakfast from an empty pantry. Toast, Ryan said. We're out of bread. Bagels? You said those were for emergencies. Ryan sat up, running a hand through his hair. This is an emergency. They made it to school with 4 minutes to spare. Milo had eaten a bagel in the car, gotten cream cheese on his shirt, and was now walking into class looking like he'd been dressed by someone who'd given up halfway through. Ryan watched him go, feeling the familiar weight of inadequacy settle between his shoulder blades. The meeting went poorly. His boss spent 40 minutes explaining why Ryan's team had missed their quarterly targets, using phrases like disappointing performance and course correction that translated to, we're watching you. Ryan nodded, took notes, and thought about the fact that he'd been doing this job for 6 years and still felt like he was faking his way through it. By the time lunch rolled around, he'd missed 2 calls from Ava. He called her back during a bathroom break, leaning against the sink in the fluorescent-lit quiet. "Hey," he said when she picked up. "Sorry, insane morning." "It's fine. Listen, I need to cancel tonight." Ryan felt something sink in his chest. They were supposed to have dinner, just the 2 of them, no kids, an actual adult evening that didn't involve negotiating screen time or mediating playground disputes. "Everything okay?" he asked. "Leo's teacher called. He got into a fight at recess." "Is he hurt?" "No, but the other kid is, split lip. Leo's been sent home for the day, and I have to meet with the principal tomorrow." Ava's voice was tight, the controlled kind of tension that meant she was holding it together by sheer force of will. "I'm sorry. I know we planned this. It's fine, don't worry about it. I'm not worried. I'm furious. He knows better than this." Ryan heard something in the background, a door slamming maybe, or Leo throwing something. "You need to go." "Yeah, I'll call you later." She hung up before he could respond. Ryan stood there, phone in hand, staring at his reflection. He looked tired, more than tired, worn down, like something essential had been slowly eroding and he'd only just noticed. He went back to his desk, answered emails, and tried not to think about the fact that they'd had exactly 3 kid-free evenings in the past 2 months, and 2 of them had been cut short by emergencies. Ava texted him around 8 that night. "Leo's grounded for a week. Emma's mad at me because I yelled. I'm a terrible mother." Ryan typed back, "You're not. Kids are hard. That doesn't make me feel better. Sorry. Want me to come over?" "No, I just need to sleep." "Okay, call me tomorrow?" She didn't respond. Ryan tried not to read into it, tried to tell himself that one bad day didn't mean anything, that relationships had rough patches, that this was normal. But when he went to bed that night, he lay awake longer than he should have, staring at the dark ceiling and wondering if they were both too tired for this to work. The next morning, Milo asked about Ava at breakfast. "When are we seeing Emma and Leo again?" he said through a mouthful of cereal. "I don't know. Soon." "Can we go to the park again?" "Maybe this weekend." Milo looked at him with the particular scrutiny only a 7-year-old could manage. "Are you and Ava fighting?" Ryan set down his coffee. "No, why would you think that? You look sad." "I'm not sad. I'm just tired." "That's what you always say." Ryan didn't have an answer for that, so he just ruffled Milo's hair and told him to brush his teeth. Ava called him that afternoon, her voice clipped and professional in a way that meant she was either at work or holding herself together with duct tape and spite. "I talked to the principal," she said. "Leo's suspended for 3 days. What happened?" "Some kid said his mom was a bad parent because she works too much." Leo punched him. Ryan closed his eyes. "Ava, yeah." Don't tell me it's not my fault. I know it's my fault. I've been working 16-hour days. I missed his soccer game last week. And now he's punching kids because he thinks he has to defend me. He's 6. Kids say stupid things. And my 6-year-old is violent because I'm never around. That's not... I have to go. I have a board call in 5 minutes. Bawas eat basha. She hung up before he could finish, and Ryan sat there, phone in hand, feeling like he'd failed some kind of test he hadn't known he was taking. That night, he tried calling her again. It went to voicemail. He left a message. Something about how she was doing her best, how Leo would be fine, how they'd figure it out together. He didn't know if she listened to it. 2 days passed. Ava texted sporadically. Short messages about Leo's suspension, Emma's math homework, a client crisis that had her working past midnight. Ryan responded with the right words, but he could feel the distance growing between them, widening with every missed call and abbreviated text. On Friday, he showed up at her office unannounced. The receptionist tried to stop him, but Ava appeared before security could get involved, looking like she'd slept in her clothes and survived on coffee alone. "Ryan, what are you doing here? We need to talk." "I'm in the middle of, I don't care. 5 minutes, please." Ava glanced back at her office, then at him, and something in her face cracked. "Okay, 5 minutes." They went to a conference room down the hall. Glass walls, uncomfortable chairs, the kind of sterile corporate space designed to make conversations efficient and impersonal. Ava closed the door and leaned against it, arms crossed. I don't have time for this, she said. Make time. Excuse me? You've been avoiding me for 3 days. If something's wrong, just say it. Ava's jaw tightened. Nothing's wrong. Bullshit. Don't. You're shutting me out. I get that you're stressed. I get that Leo's situation is hard. But you can't just disappear every time things get complicated. I'm not disappearing. I'm dealing with my life. Without me. Ava stared at him, and Ryan saw the exhaustion in her eyes, the kind that went deeper than missed sleep, that lived in your bones and made everything feel impossible. I don't know how to do this, she said quietly. Do what? Be with someone and still keep my life from falling apart. Ryan took a step closer. Your life isn't falling apart. Yes, it is. Leo suspended. Emma told me yesterday she wishes I had a normal job. I missed a client meeting because I was at the principal's office, and now they're threatening to pull their contract. And you're here, asking me to make time like I have any left to give. I'm not asking for everything, just 5 minutes. I don't have 5 minutes. Then what are we doing, Ava? Because this doesn't work if you shut me out every time it gets hard. She looked at him, and for a second Ryan thought she might cry. But Ava didn't cry. She straightened, took a breath, and when she spoke again, her voice was steady. Maybe it doesn't work at all. The words hit Ryan like a punch. You don't mean that. I don't know what I mean. I just know I'm drowning, and I don't know how to let you help without dragging you down with me. Ryan wanted to argue, to tell her she was wrong, that they could figure it out together. But he looked at her, really looked at her, and saw someone who'd been holding too much for too long, someone who'd built walls so high she didn't know how to let them down. I should go, he said finally. Ava nodded and Ryan left before either of them could say something they couldn't take back. He drove home in silence, ignoring the calls from his boss and the texts from Mrs. Patterson asking if he'd be late picking up Milo. When he finally pulled into his parking lot, he sat in the car for 10 minutes, hands on the steering wheel, wondering if this was how relationships ended. Not with a fight, but with two people too tired to keep trying. His phone buzzed. A text from Ava. I'm sorry. Ryan stared at it, then typed back. Me too. He picked up Milo from Mrs. Patterson's, made dinner from whatever was left in the fridge, and tried to pretend everything was fine. Milo asked about Ava again, and Ryan said she was busy with work. It wasn't a lie, but it felt like one. That weekend was supposed to be better. Ava had texted Friday night, a longer message this time, something close to an apology wrapped in exhaustion. They'd agreed to meet at the park Sunday afternoon, all 3 kids, a low-pressure reset that would hopefully smooth over the rough week. But Sunday morning, Milo woke up with a fever. Ryan checked his temperature, 102, and made the mental calculation every parent dreaded. Urgent care or wait it out? Risk the emergency room copay or gamble that it was just a cold? He gave Milo children's Tylenol, set him up on the couch with cartoons, and texted Ava, Milo's sick, can't make it today. Her response came 5 minutes later. Is he okay? Fever. Probably just a cold. Do you need anything? Ryan wanted to say yes. Wanted to ask her to come over, to sit with him while Milo slept, to be the person who helped shoulder the worry. But he remembered the look on her face in the conference room, the barely contained panic, the sense that one more thing would break her completely. We're fine, he typed. Talk later. Milo's fever broke by Monday, but the week didn't improve. Ryan's boss scheduled a performance review that felt more like an interrogation. His car started making a noise that probably meant something expensive, and Ava's texts became shorter, more infrequent, until they were just checking boxes. How's Milo? How was your day? Without any real weight behind them. On Wednesday, she called him during her lunch break. I've been thinking, she said, and Ryan's stomach dropped because nothing good ever started that way. About? Us, the kids. How we're doing this. Ryan sat down on his couch, phone pressed to his ear. Okay. It's not working. Ava, let me finish. It's not working the way we're doing it now. We see each other once a week if we're lucky. We're both exhausted. The kids are starting to notice. So what do you want to do, us? There was a long pause, and Ryan heard background noise. Voices, maybe a door closing. Ava was probably hiding in her office, stealing minutes between meetings to have this conversation. I want to try harder, she said finally. I want to actually make this a priority instead of something I fit in between everything else. Ryan exhaled. Yeah. Yeah, but I need you to meet me halfway. I need you to tell me when I'm shutting you out. I need you to not let me disappear. I can do that. And I need to meet your son properly, not just at the park. Actually spend time with him. He'd like that. What about this weekend? All of us. We can do something simple, movie, pizza, whatever. Just together. Ryan felt something loosen in his chest. Okay, yeah, let's do that. Okay, Ava said, and he heard the relief in her voice. I'll text you Friday to confirm. She did. They met Saturday at a pizza place with an arcade attached, the kind of loud, chaotic spot designed to exhaust children and give parents 15 minutes of peace. Emma, Leo, and Milo hit the games immediately, leaving Ryan and Ava at a booth with a pitcher of soda and the first real conversation they'd had in 2 weeks. Leo's suspension ended yesterday, Ava said. He wrote an apology letter to the kid he hit. It was actually pretty sweet. How's he doing? Better. I've been trying to leave work earlier, make it to more of his stuff. It's not perfect, but it's something. Yup, don't. That's all you can do. Ava looked at him, and Ryan saw the vulnerability underneath the exhaustion. I'm scared I'm going to mess this up. This? Us? Them? All of it. Ryan reached across the table and took her hand. You won't. You don't know that. No, but I'm choosing to believe it anyway. Ava squeezed his hand, and for the first time in days, Ryan felt like they were on solid ground. The kids came back in a sugar-fueled whirlwind, demanding more tokens and telling overlapping stories about who'd won what. Ryan and Ava let them, watching the way Emma mediated between the younger two, the way Milo deferred to Leo on which game to play next. They weren't a family yet, not really, but they were something fragile and imperfect and worth fighting for. After pizza, they walked to a park a few blocks away. The evening was cool, early November, settling in with the kind of crispness that smelled like leaves and wood smoke. The kids ran ahead, racing to the swings, and Ryan and Ava followed at a slower pace. Can I ask you something? Ava said. Sure. What do you want this to be? Long term, I mean. Ryan thought about it. I don't know. I haven't let myself think that far ahead. Why not? Because I'm scared if I want it too much, it'll disappear. Ava stopped walking, turning to face him. I'm not going to disappear. You almost did. I know. And I'm sorry. But I'm here now, and I'm trying. Ryan looked at her, really looked at her. This woman who terrified and intrigued him in equal measure, who carried the weight of an entire company and 2 kids and still somehow found space for him. I want it to work, he said. I want us to figure out how to be together without losing ourselves in the process. That's a tall order, I know, but I want it too. They stood there, watching their kids play, and Ryan let himself imagine it, a future where this wasn't just stolen moments between chaos, where they built something real and lasting. It felt impossible and inevitable at the same time. The weeks that followed were better, not easy, but better. They found a rhythm. Dinners on Wednesdays, family outings on Saturdays, phone calls after the kids went to bed when they were both too tired to make sense, but talked anyway. Ryan learned that Ava stress-baked when she couldn't sleep, that she had a scar on her knee from falling off a bike when she was 12, that she cried at commercials, but never at movies. Ava learned that Ryan played guitar to decompress, that he'd been writing the same novel for 6 years and would probably never finish it, that he had a recurring nightmare about showing up to Milo's school and forgetting which kid was his. They learned each other in pieces, slow and imperfect, through missed texts and rescheduled plans and the particular intimacy of 2 people trying to build something while their lives actively fought against it. In early December, Ava invited Ryan and Milo to her company's holiday party. It's going to be boring, she warned. Corporate small talk and bad wine, but the kids are invited, and Emma and Leo really want Milo to come. Ryan agreed, mostly because he was curious to see Ava in her element, the version of her that commanded boardrooms and made million-dollar decisions. The party was at a downtown hotel, all glass and steel and aggressive minimalism. Ryan showed up in the only suit he owned, with Milo in a button-up shirt that he'd already half untucked. Ava met them in the lobby wearing a black dress that made Ryan forget how to form complete sentences. You look, he started. Professional? She offered. That's one word for it. She smiled, taking his hand. Come on, let's get this over with. The party was exactly as boring as advertised. Ryan shook hands with people whose names he immediately forgot, made small talk about quarterly projections he didn't understand, and tried to keep Milo from eating an entire table's worth of appetizers. Ava floated through it all with practiced ease, introducing Ryan as her partner, a word that made his chest tighten every time she said it. Halfway through the evening, one of Ava's colleagues cornered him near the bar. So you're the one, the woman said. Mid-40s, sharp suit, the kind of smile that didn't reach her eyes. The one what? Ryan asked. The one who got Ava to actually leave the office before midnight. We were starting to think she was a vampire. Ryan forced a laugh. She's just committed to her work. The skating. Committed's one word for it. Obsessed is another. The woman leaned in, lowering her voice. Between you and me, she's been different lately, softer. I wasn't sure if that was a good thing. And now? Now I'm still not sure. But she seems happy, so maybe it's worth it. The woman drifted away, leaving Ryan with a knot in his stomach he couldn't quite name. He found Ava a few minutes later, talking to an older man in a suit that probably cost more than Ryan's car. Ryan, she said, pulling him into the conversation. This is Marcus, our lead investor. Marcus, this is Ryan Hayes. Marcus shook his hand with the grip of someone used to evaluating worth in seconds. Ryan, Ava tells me you're in logistics. That's right. Fascinating field. The backbone of modern commerce, really. It wasn't fascinating, and they both knew it, but Ryan nodded politely. They made small talk for a few more minutes before Marcus excused himself, and Ava turned to Ryan with a look of apology. Sorry, he's harmless but relentless. It's fine. Everyone here seems intense. That's putting it mildly. Ava glanced around the room, and Ryan saw the exhaustion creeping back into her face. Can we leave? I've done my time. Please. They collected the kids, who'd found the dessert table and were currently on a sugar high that would make bedtime impossible, and escaped to the parking garage. The cold air was a relief after the stuffiness of the party, and Ryan breathed it in like he'd been underwater. That was awful, Ava said. It wasn't that bad. You're lying to be nice. Okay, it was pretty bad. Ava laughed, leaning against her car. Emma and Leo were already in the back seat, arguing about something Ryan couldn't hear. Milo stood next to him, half asleep on his feet. Thank you for coming, Ava said. Of course. I mean it. I know it's not your world, but it meant something to have you there. Ryan stepped closer, lowering his voice so the kids wouldn't hear. Lowering his dance. I'd go to 100 boring parties if it meant being with you. Yeah. Ava kissed him then, brief but real, the kind of kiss that felt like a promise. I should get them home, she said when they pulled apart. Yeah, me too. But neither of them moved. They stood there in the cold parking garage, with 3 kids between them and 1,000 reasons why this shouldn't work, and chose to stay a little longer anyway. Christmas came fast. They spent it separately, Ryan with Milo at his parents' place upstate, Ava with her kids at her sister's house in Connecticut. They texted throughout the day, sending photos of wrapping paper chaos and overcrowded dinner tables, and Ryan found himself missing her in a way that felt both wonderful and terrifying. New Year's Eve, they managed to sync up. Ava's nanny agreed to watch all 3 kids, and Ryan and Ava went to a quiet bar near her house. Nothing fancy, just dim lighting and good whiskey and the kind of low-key atmosphere that felt like relief after the holiday madness. To surviving the holidays, Ava said, raising her glass. Ryan clinked his against hers. To next year being less chaotic. That's wishful thinking. I'm an optimist. Since when? Since I met you. Ava smiled, the real kind that made her whole face change. You're getting better at this. At what? Flirting. You were terrible at it when we met. I was nervous. You're still nervous. Yeah, but now I hide it better. They talked until midnight, watching the countdown on the TV above the bar. When the clock struck 12, Ryan kissed her, and for a moment, the noise and chaos and impossible logistics of their lives faded into something simpler. Happy New Year, Ava said against his lips. Happy New Year. They stayed until last call, then sat in Ryan's car in the parking lot for another hour, talking about nothing and everything. Ava told him about her plans to expand the company, the risks involved, the fear that she'd overextend and lose everything. Ryan told her about Milo starting second grade, the anxiety he felt about his son growing up, the way time moved too fast and too slow at the same time. I'm glad I met you, Ava said quietly. Yeah? Yeah. Even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Ryan took her hand, threading their fingers together. Same. January came with snow and school schedules and the slow settling back into routine. Ryan and Ava saw each other when they could. Quick lunches, late-night phone calls, Saturdays at the park when the weather cooperated. The kids grew more comfortable with each other, the initial wariness giving way to actual friendship. Milo and Leo became inseparable, building elaborate Lego structures and staging dinosaur battles that left Ryan's living room looking like a war zone. Emma played the role of benevolent older sister, mediating disputes and rolling her eyes at the younger boys with practiced patience. In mid-January, Ryan's lease came up for renewal. He sat at his kitchen table staring at the paperwork, doing math he'd done a dozen times already. Rent was going up, not a lot, but enough to sting. He could afford it, barely, if he cut back on other things. But the apartment felt smaller every day, especially when Milo had friends over, or when Ryan tried to imagine bringing Ava here more often. He called her that night after Milo was asleep. I need advice, he said when she picked up. About? My lease is up. Rent's increasing. I'm trying to figure out if I should renew or look for something else. What do you want to do? I don't know. Moving is a nightmare, but staying feels like settling. Ava was quiet for a moment. How much is the increase? Ryan told her, and she made a noise that was half sympathy, half frustration. That's criminal. It's the market. It's extortion. Same thing. Have you looked at other places? Not yet. I wanted to see what you thought. What I thought? Ryan hesitated, unsure how to phrase what he was actually asking. I guess I'm wondering if there's a world where this affects both of us. The silence stretched long enough that Ryan thought the call had dropped. Ava? I'm here. I'm just thinking. About? About how I have a 4-bedroom house with 2 empty rooms and a basement I never use. Ryan's heart started beating faster. Are you... I'm not saying anything yet. I'm just thinking out loud. Okay, but if you were thinking out loud too, what would you say? Ryan looked around his cramped apartment, at the stacks of dishes he hadn't washed and the pile of Milo's shoes by the door. He thought about Ava's house, the space, the yard, the way the kids had room to actually play without destroying everything. I'd say it's too soon, he said carefully. But I'd also say I've been thinking about it. Me too, Ava admitted, which is probably insane. Definitely insane. We've only been together 6 months. And we have 3 kids between us. And I work 80 hours a week. And I'm barely keeping my own life together. They both laughed, the kind of slightly hysterical laughter that came from acknowledging just how ridiculous they were being. We're not actually doing this, right? Ava said. Right, Ryan. Ryan agreed. We're just talking. Just hypothetically considering it. Exactly. But the seed was planted, and over the next few weeks it grew. They started spending more time at Ava's house. It wasn't a conscious decision at first, just convenience. Her place was bigger, the kids had more room to spread out, and Ryan's apartment felt increasingly claustrophobic every time he walked through the door. So Saturday afternoons turned into Saturday nights, and Sunday mornings found Ryan making pancakes in Ava's kitchen while Milo and Leo fought over syrup, and Emma set the table with the kind of precision that reminded him eerily of her mother. By February, Ryan had a toothbrush in Ava's bathroom and a drawer in her dresser. Milo had started calling it the big house, which made Ava laugh and Ryan feel vaguely uncomfortable in a way he couldn't articulate. You're practically living here, Ava said one Sunday morning. They were in her kitchen, the kids still asleep upstairs, sharing coffee in the kind of quiet that felt stolen. Is that a problem? Ryan asked. No, but we should probably talk about it. Talk about what? Ava set down her mug, looking at him with that direct gaze that still made him feel like he was being evaluated. About what we're doing, about whether this is just convenient or if we're actually moving towards something. Ryan's lease had officially expired 3 weeks ago. He'd gone month to month with his landlord, telling himself he needed time to think, to plan, to make a rational decision that wasn't based on 6 months of dating and the way Ava looked in the morning light. "I want to move in," he said before he could stop himself. Ava blinked. "What?" "With you. Here. I want to move in with you." "Ryan, I know it's fast. I know we should probably wait another 6 months and have 100 more conversations about boundaries and logistics. But I'm tired of pretending I don't want this." Ava stared at him, and Ryan couldn't read her expression. Fear? Hope? The same terror he felt crawling up his throat? "Say something," he said. "I'm pregnant." The words hit Ryan like a physical blow. He set down his coffee cup carefully, like if he moved too fast, everything would shatter. "What?" "I'm pregnant," Ava repeated, and her voice cracked on the last syllable. "I found out yesterday. I was going to tell you this weekend, but then you said—" She stopped, pressing her hands to her face. "This is a disaster." Ryan's mind was racing, trying to process. Pregnant. Ava was pregnant. They were going to have a baby. He was going to be a father again. They'd been dating for 6 months, barely figuring out how to blend their existing families, and now— "How far along?" he asked. 8 weeks. Maybe 9. I haven't been to the doctor yet." "Have you told the kids?" "Are you insane? I haven't even processed it myself." Ryan stood up, needing to move, to do something with the energy coursing through him. He paced to the window, looking out at Ava's backyard where the kids had built a snowman last week that was now listing dangerously to one side. "Are you keeping it?" he asked quietly. The silence behind him was so absolute that Ryan turned around. Ava was still at the table, tears streaming down her face, and Ryan had never seen her cry before. Not once. Not even when Leo had been suspended or when her biggest client had threatened to walk. "I don't know," she whispered. "I don't know anything right now except that I'm terrified." Ryan crossed the kitchen in 3 steps and pulled her into his arms. She resisted for half a second, then collapsed against him, her whole body shaking. "I can't do this," she said into his chest. "I can't have another baby. I can barely manage the 2 I have. I work 16-hour days. I'm never home. Emma already thinks I don't love her enough, and now I'm supposed to—" Her voice broke. "I can't." Ryan held her tighter, feeling his own panic warring with something else, something that felt dangerously close to hope. "What do you want to do?" he asked. "I don't know." "Do you want me to leave? Give you space to think?" Ava pulled back, looking at him with red-rimmed eyes. "Do you want to leave?" "No." "Even though this is insane? Even though we're barely making this work as it is?" Ryan cupped her face in his hands. "I'm not going anywhere." "You say that now." "I mean it. I'm not going anywhere. Whatever you decide, whatever you need, I'm here." Ava searched his face like she was looking for the lie, the moment when he'd crack and reveal this was too much. But Ryan meant every word. He was terrified, yes. Overwhelmed, absolutely. But he wasn't leaving. "I need to think," Ava said finally. "Okay. I can't make this decision right now. I can't—" She took a shaky breath. "I need a few days." "Take whatever time you need. Eat." Upstairs, they heard footsteps, small feet thundering down the hallway, voices rising in some argument about whose turn it was to pick the movie. Normal life intruding on the conversation that had just tilted their entire world. Ava wiped her eyes, composing herself with visible effort. "We should probably—" "Yeah," Ryan said. "I'll make breakfast." They moved through the rest of the morning on autopilot. Ryan made pancakes while Ava refereed a dispute between Leo and Milo over the last of the chocolate chips. Emma watched them both with the kind of perceptiveness that made Ryan wonder how much she'd picked up on. How much kids always knew that adults tried to hide. When Ryan left that afternoon, Milo buckled into his car seat and talking about the Lego set Leo had promised to bring next time. He felt like he was driving away from a bomb that hadn't detonated yet. Ava didn't call that night, or the next day. Ryan texted her Tuesday morning, "How are you doing?" Her response came 3 hours later, "Surviving." "Can we talk Thursday?" Of course. Whatever you need. Thursday felt like an eternity away. Ryan went through the motions at work. Meetings he barely listened to. Emails he answered on autopilot. Spreadsheets that blurred together into meaningless numbers. His boss commented that he seemed distracted, and Ryan made some excuse about Milo having a cold. It wasn't entirely a lie. Milo had been sniffling for days, though not enough to stay home from school. Wednesday night, Ryan couldn't sleep. He lay in his cramped bedroom, staring at the ceiling, and tried to imagine what Ava was going to say. She was going to end it. That felt inevitable. 3 kids was too much for anyone, let alone someone who worked the way Ava did, who'd built an empire on the foundation of complete control over every aspect of her life. Or maybe she'd want to keep the baby, but not him. Maybe she'd decide she could do this alone, the way she'd done everything else. Ryan's phone buzzed at 2 in the morning. A text from Ava. Are you awake? Yeah, can I call you? Please. His phone rang 10 seconds later. I'm keeping it, Ava said without preamble. The baby. I'm keeping it. Ryan sat up, heart pounding. Okay. I know that's insane. I know I shouldn't, but I can't. She took a breath. I can't not. Okay, Ryan said again, because he didn't know what else to say. I need you to tell me this isn't going to destroy everything. It's not going to destroy everything. You don't know that. No, but I believe it anyway. Ava laughed, watery and exhausted. You're either the bravest person I've ever met or the most delusional. Probably both. Ryan, I'm serious. This is going to be so hard. Harder than anything we've dealt with so far. I'm going to be impossible to live with. I'm going to be hormonal and exhausted. And Ava. What? I'm still here. I'm still not going anywhere. The silence on the other end was so long, Ryan thought she'd hung up. I want you to move in, she said finally. What? Move in, you and Milo, before I change my mind and before I start showing and before this gets any more complicated than it already is. Ryan's mind was spinning. Are you sure? No, but I'm doing it anyway. When? Now. This weekend. I don't know. Whenever you can. Ryan looked around his bedroom, at the boxes he'd never fully unpacked, at the life he'd been barely maintaining for years. Okay? Okay? Yeah, okay, let's do it. Ava exhaled, and Ryan could hear the relief in it. This is crazy. Completely. We're going to regret this. Probably. But you're still in? I'm still in. They talked for another hour, hashing out logistics that felt both mundane and surreal. Ryan would give notice on his apartment. They'd tell the kids this weekend. Ava would schedule a doctor's appointment to confirm the pregnancy and get an actual due date. They'd figure out the rest as they went. When they finally hung up, Ryan lay back down and stared at the ceiling, feeling like his entire life had just been picked up and shaken. In the next room, Milo was sleeping, completely unaware that everything was about to change. Ryan closed his eyes and tried to imagine it. Living with Ava, raising 4 kids between them, us, navigating the chaos that was about to explode across both their lives. He should have been terrified. He was terrified. But underneath the fear was something else. Something that felt like the future finally clicking into place. Saturday morning, Ryan sat Milo down on the couch. Buddy, I need to talk to you about something. Milo looked up from his tablet, eyes wide. Am I in trouble? No, nothing like that. I just need to tell you about some changes. What kind of changes? Ryan took a breath. You know how we've been spending a lot of time at Ava's house? Yeah. Well, I was thinking maybe we could live there, you and me, with Ava and Emma and Leo. Milo's face scrunched up in concentration. Like forever? Yeah, like forever. Would I have my own room? You'd share with Leo. Is that okay? Milo considered this with the seriousness of a Supreme Court justice. Does Leo snore? I don't think so. Then okay. Ryan blinked. That's it? You're okay with it? I like Ava's house, and Leo has better toys than me. What about your friends here? Your school? Can I still go to the same school? Yeah, Ava's house is in the same district. Milo shrugged. Then it's fine. Ryan stared at his son, amazed once again at the resilience of children. He'd been preparing for tears, for resistance, for some big emotional conversation about change and family and what it all meant. Instead, Milo was already back on his tablet. The biggest decision of his young life processed and filed away in approximately 30 seconds. "There's one more thing," Ryan said. "What?" "Ava's going to have a baby. You're going to have a little brother or sister." This got Milo's full attention. He set down the tablet, eyes going wide. "Really? Really? When?" "Probably in the fall. We'll know more soon." "Can I name it?" "Probably not." "Can I teach it about dinosaurs?" "Definitely." Milo grinned, and Ryan felt something tight in his chest release. It was going to be okay. Maybe not perfect, maybe not easy, but okay. That afternoon, they went to Ava's house. Emma and Leo were in the living room when they arrived, and Ava looked as nervous as Ryan had ever seen her. "Kids," she said, her voice steadier than Ryan expected. "We need to talk to you about something important." Emma looked up from her book, instantly wary. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. Ryan and Milo are going to move in with us." Leo jumped up. "Really? Really? Can Milo sleep in my room? If that's okay with Milo's." "Yes!" Leo pumped his fist, and Milo grinned, and just like that, half the battle was won. Emma was quieter. She closed her book, looking between Ava and Ryan with an expression Ryan couldn't quite read. "Why?" she asked. "Because we care about each other," Ava said, "and we think we'll be happier together." "Are you getting married?" "We're not talking about that yet. But you might? Maybe. Someday." Emma chewed on this, her face serious. "What if it doesn't work out?" The question hung in the air, and Ryan saw Ava flinch. It was the same fear they'd both been dancing around, the same thing that had kept them from doing this sooner. "We're going to try really hard to make it work," Ryan said. "But you're right. There are no guarantees. All we can promise is that we're going to show up every day and do our best." "That's not very reassuring," Emma said. "I know, but it's honest." Emma looked at her mother. "Do you love him, Pat?" Ava's breath caught. She and Ryan hadn't said those words yet. They danced around them, implied them, but never actually spoken them out loud. "Yes," Ava said quietly. "I do." Ryan felt like the floor had dropped out from under him. Ava met his eyes, and he saw the vulnerability there, the risk she'd just taken. "I love him too," Ryan said, looking at Emma but speaking to Ava. "And I love you and Leo. All of you." Emma's eyes filled with tears, and for a second Ryan thought he'd said the wrong thing. Then she stood up and hugged him, and Ryan wrapped his arms around her, feeling this fragile trust settling between them. "There's one more thing," Ava said when Emma pulled back. "I'm going to have a baby. You're all going to have a new brother or sister." The silence that followed was absolute. Leo spoke first. "A baby?" "Yes." "A real one?" "As opposed to what?" Ava asked. "I don't know. A real baby?" "Yes, Leo. A real baby." Emma's face had gone pale. "Are you serious?" "Completely." "But you're old." "I'm 30, Emma. That's not old." "It's old for a baby. Lots of people have babies at 30. Emma looked at Ryan like this was somehow his fault. "Did you know about this?" "I found out this week," Ryan said. "This is insane." "Emma," Ava started. "No, this is actually insane. We're moving in with people we barely know, and now there's going to be a baby? What if Leo and Milo hate each other? What if Ryan's a terrible person? What if you realize this whole thing was a mistake and we all just have to live with it?" Ryan expected Ava to get defensive, to shut down the way she did when she felt attacked, but instead, she knelt down so she was eye level with Emma. "You're right," Ava said. "This is scary. And you're allowed to be scared. You're allowed to be angry. You're allowed to feel however you feel about this." "I don't want everything to change," Emma said, and her voice broke. "I know, sweetheart, but it's already changing. It's been changing since I met Ryan, and I hope, it's changing for the better." "What if it's not?" Then we'll deal with it, together." Emma wiped her eyes, and Ryan saw so much of Ava in her. That same fierce need for control, that same terror of vulnerability. Can I have my own room? Emma asked finally. Ava laughed, relief flooding her face. Yes, you can have your own room. And I get to name the baby? Absolutely not. Then I'm not signing off on this. Emma, I'm kidding, mostly. They spent the rest of the afternoon planning. Leo and Milo immediately started designing their shared room, dragging Ryan upstairs to explain their vision of bunk beds and a Lego table and posters of dinosaurs and superheroes. Emma retreated to her room with her book, and Ava sat on the couch looking simultaneously exhausted and lighter than Ryan had seen her in weeks. That went better than I expected, Ryan said, sitting down next to her. Emma's going to be the hard one. She just needs time. I hope you're right. Ryan took her hand. You told her you loved me. Ava looked at him, a small smile playing at her lips. I did. Did you mean it? Would I have said it in front of my daughter if I didn't? Say it again, just to me. Ava leaned in, close enough that Ryan could feel her breath. I love you. I love you too. They kissed, soft and sweet, and for a moment everything else faded away. Then Leo came thundering down the stairs asking if they could get a puppy, and Milo was right behind him saying, actually, they should get a turtle. And Emma yelled from upstairs that if anyone got a pet without consulting her, she was filing for emancipation. Ava pulled back, laughing. Welcome to the chaos. I'm already here, Ryan said. Might as well stay. The move happened over 2 weeks in March. Ryan had accumulated less than he realized over 7 years in his apartment. Most of it Milo's stuff, toys and books and clothes that seemed to multiply in boxes. They moved in stages, one carload at a time, and by the second weekend, Ava's house was drowning in cardboard and bubble wrap and half-assembled furniture. This was a terrible idea, Ava said, standing in what used to be her organized living room and was now a disaster zone. Too late now, Ryan said, carrying another box labeled Kitchen, MISC. We don't even fit. Where is all this going to go? We'll figure it out. That's what you keep saying. Because it's true. The kids adapted faster than the adults. Leo and Milo's room became a fortress of chaos that Ryan gave up trying to organize after the third day. Emma maintained her sanctuary with military precision, but even she started leaving her door open more, drifting into the living room to watch TV with everyone else instead of hiding upstairs. The first real fight happened on a Wednesday. Ryan was cooking dinner, or attempting to, while simultaneously helping Milo with homework and listening to Leo explain why his teacher was mean for giving them math homework at all. Ava was late getting home from work again, and Ryan was trying not to be annoyed about it. When she finally walked in at 7:30, dinner was cold, and the kids had already eaten cereal out of boredom. I'm sorry, she said immediately. The client meeting ran long. You could have called. I texted. At 6:45, dinner was at 6. Ava set down her bag, and Ryan saw the exhaustion in her face. I said, I'm sorry. What else do you want? I want you to be here. I want you to prioritize your family over work occasionally. I'm doing the best I can. Are you? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like nothing's changed. You're still working 80 hours a week, still missing dinner, still paying for this house, Ava cut in, her voice sharp. Still paying for groceries and utilities and everything else that lets you and Milo live here rent-free. The words landed like a slap. Ryan stared at her and Ava's face immediately crumpled. I didn't mean that, she said. Yeah, you did. Ryan, no, you're right. This is your house, your money. I'm just the guy who moved in because it was convenient. That's not what I said. It's what you meant. Ryan turned back to the stove, scraping congealed pasta into the trash. Behind him, he heard Ava take a shaky breath. I work this much because I have to, she said quietly. Because if I don't, everything falls apart. The company, the house, all of it. I can't just stop. I'm not asking you to stop. I'm asking you to show up. I am showing up. So, you're showing up to work. You're showing up to board meetings. But you're missing dinner. You're missing bedtime. You're missing... Ryan stopped, trying to control his voice. You're missing everything. The silence stretched between them, heavy with all the things they weren't saying. I'm trying, Ava said finally. I know. I don't know how to do this, how to be present and still keep everything else from falling apart. Ryan turned around and he saw the tears in her eyes. You can't do everything alone anymore. That's the whole point of this. We're supposed to be a team. I don't know how to be on a team. Then learn, because I can't do this by myself either. Ava crossed the kitchen, wrapping her arms around him from behind. Ryan felt her forehead press against his back, felt the tremor running through her. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. What I saw. Ryan turned in her arms, holding her tight. I'm sorry too. I shouldn't have. No, you were right. I'm hiding in work because it's easier than being here, than facing all of this. All of what? The pregnancy, the kids, you, everything that could go wrong. Ryan pulled back, looking at her. What if it goes right? I don't know how to plan for that. Then don't plan. Just be here. Ava nodded against his chest, and they stood there in the kitchen, holding each other while the kids argued about something in the next room, and the dinner Ryan had tried to make sat ruined in the trash. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't even close. But it was real. The next day, Ava left work at 5:30. She came home to find Ryan helping Emma with a science project while Milo and Leo built a blanket fort in the living room. Dinner was simple. Tacos, because Ryan had learned that tacos solved most problems, and they ate together at the table, all 5 of them, in the kind of chaotic harmony that was starting to feel normal. After the kids were in bed, Ava found Ryan on the back porch, drinking a beer and staring at the dark yard. Hey, she said, sitting down next to him. Hey, she said, sitting down next to. I left at 5:30. I noticed. It was hard. There were 17 things I didn't finish. My assistant looked at me like I'd lost my mind. But you did it? Yeah, I did. Ava took his beer, stealing a sip. I'm going to try to do it more. Not every day, but more. That's all I'm asking. I know. I need you to be patient with me. I've been doing this alone for so long, I don't know how to let someone else in. Ryan took her hand. I'm not going anywhere, no matter how long it takes. They sat in the dark, fingers intertwined, and let the quiet settle around them. Inside, the house was finally theirs, messy and imperfect and filled with too many people and too much noise and the kind of chaos that came from actually living. And for the first time since moving in, Ryan let himself believe they might actually make it work. The cracks started showing in April. Small things at first. Emma forgot her lunch 3 days in a row, and when Ava asked why she hadn't reminded anyone, Emma just shrugged and said she didn't think anyone would care. Leo started having nightmares, waking up crying about monsters under the bed. Except when Ryan tried to comfort him, Leo screamed that he wanted his real dad. Milo got sent to the principal's office for pushing another kid on the playground, something he'd never done before. And when Ryan asked him why, Milo said the kid had asked if his parents were getting divorced, and he didn't know how to answer. Ryan stood in Principal Oakes' office, listening to a lecture about appropriate conflict resolution while his son sat slumped in a chair, looking miserable and small. Milo's usually such a well-behaved student, Principal Oakes said, peering over her glasses. This is very unlike him. I know, Ryan said. We've had some changes at home recently, big changes. Changes can be difficult for children. Have you considered family counseling? Ryan wanted to laugh. Family counseling. Like they had time for that between work and school pickups and doctor's appointments and the 1,000 other things that filled every minute of every day. We'll look into it, he said instead. When they got home, Ava's car was already in the driveway. A miracle, considering it wasn't even 5 o'clock yet. Ryan walked in to find her at the kitchen table with Emma, going through a stack of graded homework that was apparently 2 weeks overdue. 73%, Ava was saying, her voice tight. Emma, you're better than this. I forgot to turn it in. How do you forget to turn in 2 weeks of homework? I don't know. I just did. Ava looked up when Ryan entered, and he saw the frustration etched across her face. Please tell me your afternoon was better than mine. Milo got in a fight at school. Of course he did. Ava dropped her head into her hands. What is happening to them? They're adjusting, Ryan said, though he wasn't sure he believed it. It's been 2 months. Shouldn't they be adjusted by now? It doesn't work like that. Emma stood up abruptly, her chair scraping across the floor. Can I go to my room? No, Ava said. We're not done talking about this. There's nothing to talk about. I forgot to turn in my homework. I'll do better. Can I go now? Emma shut. Please, Ava sighed. Fine, go eat. Emma disappeared up the stairs, and moments later her door slammed hard enough to rattle the walls. Leo emerged from the living room where he'd been watching TV, took one look at Ava's face, and wisely retreated. Milo stood in the doorway, still wearing his backpack, looking like he was waiting for someone to tell him what to do. Go wash up for dinner, Ryan said gently. Milo nodded and trudged upstairs. Ryan waited until he heard the bathroom door close before turning to Ava. We need to talk about this, he said. About what? About the fact that all three kids are falling apart, and we're pretending everything's fine. Ava stood up, gathering Emma's homework into a messy pile. They're not falling apart. They're having a rough week. It's not just this week. Emma's grades have been slipping since February. Leo's having nightmares every other night, and Milo just pushed a kid on the playground because someone asked him about his family. So what do you want me to do? Quit my job? Stop being pregnant? Rewind time and not move you in? I didn't say that. Then what are you saying? Ryan took a breath, trying to find the right words. I'm saying we're in over our heads. And instead of dealing with it, we're just pushing forward and hoping it gets better. What else are we supposed to do? I don't know. Actually talk to the kids? Ask them how they're feeling instead of assuming they're fine? I talk to them. Well, when? Between board meetings and client calls? When you're home before 7, which is maybe twice a week? Ava's face went cold. We're not doing this again. Doing what? This thing where you make me feel guilty for working, for providing for this family. I'm not trying to make you feel guilty. I'm trying to get you to see that the kids need you. Not your money. You. And what about you? Ava shot back. You're here all the time, Mr. Present Father of the Year, but Milo's still getting in fights, so maybe being here isn't the magical solution you think it is. The words hit Ryan like a punch. He stared at her, and Ava's face immediately shifted, from anger to regret in the space of a breath. I didn't mean that, she said. Yes, you did. Ryan, you know what? You're right. Being here doesn't fix everything. But at least I'm trying. At least I'm showing up and dealing with the mess instead of hiding in my office and pretending it doesn't exist. I'm not hiding. Then what do you call it? Ava opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. I call it survival. I call it doing whatever I can to keep this family afloat financially so we don't lose everything. Son, we're not going to lose everything. You don't know that. And you don't know that we will. But you use it as an excuse to avoid being here, to avoid dealing with the hard parts. The hard parts? Ava's voice rose. I'm 7 months pregnant, Ryan. I'm running a company with 300 employees. I have 2 kids who are barely speaking to me and a stepdaughter who looks at me like I ruined her father's life. Every single thing is hard. Milo's my son, not my stepdaughter. Whatever, you know what I mean, boss. Do I? Because right now it sounds like you regret all of this. The move, the pregnancy, everything. Ava's eyes filled with tears, and she pressed a hand to her stomach. Of course, I don't regret it, but I'm terrified. I'm so scared that I'm going to fail at all of it. The company, the kids, you, this baby. And every time you point out another way I'm screwing up, it just confirms what I already know. Ryan felt his anger deflate. He crossed the kitchen and pulled her into his arms, feeling her body shake against his. You're not screwing up, he said into her hair. Yes, I am. No, you're just human. We both are. And we're trying to do something that's maybe impossible. Then what do we do? I don't know, but we figure it out together. Ava pulled back, wiping her eyes. I'm sorry I said that about Milo. That was cruel. I'm sorry I made you feel like work is the enemy. I know you're doing your best. My best doesn't feel like enough. Mine either. They stood there in the kitchen, holding each other while the house settled into evening quiet around them. Upstairs, they could hear the thud of footsteps, the murmur of voices. the normal sounds of kids existing. It should have felt comforting. Instead, it just felt overwhelming. That night, after a tense dinner where no one talked much and everyone went to bed early, Ryan lay awake staring at the ceiling. Next to him, Ava was curled on her side, one hand resting on her swollen belly, her breathing deep and even. Ryan's phone buzzed on the nightstand, a text from his boss. Need to talk tomorrow. 9 a.m., my office. His stomach dropped. Performance reviews weren't until June. Unscheduled meetings with his boss never meant anything good. He didn't sleep much after that. The next morning, Ryan dropped the kids at school and drove to work with a sense of dread sitting heavy in his gut. His boss, Martin, was already waiting when Ryan arrived. A bad sign. Close the door, Martin said. Ryan closed it and sat down, trying to read Martin's expression. Neutral, corporate neutral, which was somehow worse than angry. I'm going to be direct, Martin said. Your performance has been slipping, missed deadlines, errors in reports, general distraction. I've been patient because I know you have a lot going on at home, but we need to talk about expectations. Ryan's hands tightened on the armrests. I understand. I'll do better. It's not just about doing better. It's about whether you can actually meet the requirements of this position given your current circumstances. My circumstances? You're a single father. I'm not single. I have a partner. Martin waved a hand. Fine. You have 3 children and another on the way. That's a lot of responsibility. And I respect that. But it can't interfere with your work. It hasn't been interfering. Ryan, you left early 4 times last month for school emergencies. You've been late 3 times this week. Yesterday, you were on a personal call during the team meeting. That was the school calling about Milo. I understand. But from a business perspective, we need someone who can be fully present. And right now, you're not. Ryan felt something cold settle in his chest. Are you firing me? No, but I'm putting you on notice. The next 60 days are probationary. If your performance doesn't improve significantly, we'll need to reassess your position. Yes. Ryan left the office feeling like the ground had shifted beneath him. Probation. He'd never been on probation in his life. He'd been a solid employee for 6 years, not spectacular, but reliable. And now because he dared to have a life outside of work, he was being punished for it. He sat in his car in the parking lot and called Ava. Hey, she answered. What's up? I'm on probation at work. Silence. Then, what? Ryan explained the meeting, Martin's concerns, the 60-day timeline. Ava listened without interrupting, and when he finished, she was quiet for so long he thought the call had dropped. Ava, I'm here. I'm just trying to figure out what to say. You could start with, that's terrible, or your boss is an asshole. Your boss is an asshole, but he's also not entirely wrong. Ryan pulled the phone away from his ear, staring at it in disbelief. Excuse me? I'm not saying you deserve to be on probation. I'm saying that we've both been stretched too thin, and it's affecting everything. Your work, my work, the kids. So this is my fault? That's not what I said. It's what you implied. Ryan, I'm 7 months pregnant and in the middle of a crisis with my largest client. I can't have this fight right now. Then when can you have it? When's a good time for you to actually care about what's happening to me? That's not fair, Ste. None of this is fair, but I'm the one getting punished for it. Ava sighed, and Ryan heard the exhaustion in it. What do you want me to do? I want you to be on my side. I am on your side. Then act like it. He hung up before she could respond and immediately regretted it. But he couldn't call back. Couldn't face another conversation where they talked in circles and solved nothing. Ryan drove home instead of going back to work. Screw Martin and his probation. When he walked through the door, the house was blessedly empty. The kids were at school, Ava was at her office, and for the first time in months, Ryan had silence. He sat on the couch and put his head in his hands. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Moving in together was supposed to make things easier, not harder. They were supposed to be a team, splitting the load instead of drowning under the combined weight of it. But somehow, they'd made everything worse. His phone rang. Ava. Ryan let it go to voicemail. It rang again and again. On the 4th call, he answered. What? Don't hang up, Ava said. Please. I'm listening. Yes, I'm sorry. You were right. I should have led with, your boss is an asshole, and stopped there. You don't need me to solve it or analyze it. You just needed me to care. Yeah, I do care. I care so much it terrifies me. Because if you lose your job, that's more pressure on me, and I'm already at my breaking point. So am I. I know. And I'm sorry I made it about me. Ryan closed his eyes. This is so hard. I know. I don't know if we can do this. The silence on the other end stretched so long Ryan thought she'd hung up. Do you want to stop? Ava asked finally, her voice small. No, but I don't know how to keep going either. Then we figure it out, one day at a time, one crisis at a time. What if that's not enough? Then we'll deal with it when we get there, but right now, today, we just survive. Ryan let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. Okay. Okay? Yeah, okay. Us. I'm coming home early today. We'll talk more then. You don't have to. I want to. I'll be there by 4. She hung up, and Ryan sat in the quiet house, trying to believe that they could actually make this work. Ava kept her word. She walked through the door at 4:15, dropped her bag on the floor, and sat down next to Ryan on the couch. Hi. What? She said. Hi. The kids don't get home for another hour. I know. So we have time to actually talk, really talk. Ryan turned to face her. I'm scared, Ava. Of what? Of losing my job, of failing Milo, of this baby coming and everything falling apart because we can't handle what we already have. Ava took his hand. I'm scared too. I'm scared that I'm a terrible mother, that I'm prioritizing all the wrong things. That one day you're going to wake up and realize this was a mistake. I won't. You don't know that. Yes, I do. Because even on the worst days, I'd rather be here with you than anywhere else. Ava's eyes filled with tears. Even today? Even today. She kissed him then, soft and desperate, and Ryan pulled her closer, feeling the curve of her belly between them, a constant reminder of the future they were building, wanted or not. When they pulled apart, Ava rested her forehead against his. We need help. What kind of help? I don't know. A therapist? A family counselor? Someone who can help us navigate this before we completely destroy each other. You think we're destroying each other? I think we're trying so hard not to that we're making it worse. Ryan thought about it. Therapy felt like admitting defeat, like saying they couldn't handle their own lives. But maybe that was exactly what they needed to admit. Okay, he said. Let's find someone. Yeah? Yeah, let's try. And they found a therapist named Dr. Wendy Chen who specialized in blended families. Her office was in a building that smelled like lavender and had motivational posters that made Ryan want to leave immediately. But Dr. Chen herself was sharp, no nonsense, and didn't buy into any of their carefully constructed explanations for why everything was actually fine. You moved in together after 6 months of dating because you got pregnant, she said during their first session. And you brought 3 children into a situation that you weren't prepared for. Does that about sum it up? Ryan and Ava glanced at each other. When you put it that way, it sounds bad, Ava said. It is bad. Not irredeemable, but bad. You skipped about 17 steps that most couples take gradually, and now you're paying for it. So what do we do? Ryan asked. You slow down. You create boundaries. You stop trying to be a perfect blended family and accept that you're a messy blended family that's doing its best. Over the next month, they tried. They implemented rules. Family dinners 3 times a week, no exceptions. Individual time with each kid. Date night twice a month, even if it was just takeout after the kids were asleep. Ava committed to leaving work by 6:30 at least 3 days a week. Ryan started being more honest about when he was overwhelmed instead of pretending he had it under control. It helped. Not immediately, not magically, but gradually. Emma's grades stabilized. Leo's nightmares decreased. Milo stopped getting in fights at school, but the pregnancy became its own crisis. Ava's blood pressure spiked in her 8th month. Her doctor put her on modified bed rest, which meant working from home and staying off her feet as much as possible. For someone who couldn't sit still, it was torture. I'm going insane, she told Ryan one evening. She was propped up on the couch, laptop balanced on her belly, trying to join a video call while Leo and Milo played a video game at volumes that should have been illegal. Can you turn that down? Ryan called to the boys. We can't hear it if it's quieter, Leo yelled back. Then use headphones. We don't have headphones. Yes, you do. They're in the drawer by the TV. Milo ran to check, came back empty-handed. No, they're not. Then where? Ryan stopped. You know what? Forget it. Just turn it down. They did grudgingly, and Ryan returned to the kitchen where he was attempting to make dinner while simultaneously helping Emma with a history project that was due tomorrow, and she'd just remembered existed. The Boston Tea Party was in what year? Emma asked, not looking up from her phone. 1773, Ryan said automatically. Are you sure? Pretty sure. How do you know? Because I paid attention in 8th grade. Emma made a face. That's not helpful. Then look it up. I am looking it up. I'm just checking if you're right. Ryan stirred the pasta, checked the clock. Dinner should have been ready 10 minutes ago, and tried not to think about the laundry piling, up upstairs, or the fact that he still hadn't responded to Martin's latest email about next quarter's projections. Ava appeared in the doorway, laptop in hand. I need you to look at something. Can it wait? I'm kind of in the middle of... No, it can't wait. This contract needs to go out tonight. Ryan looked at the pasta, at Emma bent over her history book, at the living room where the boys were now arguing about whose turn it was to pick the next game. Ava, I can't. I'm making dinner and helping Emma, and this will take 2 minutes. I don't have 2 minutes. Ava's face tightened. Fine, I'll figure it out myself. Oh. She turned to leave, and Ryan felt guilt and frustration war in his chest. Wait. She stopped. Show me the contract. They went over it while the pasta boiled over, while Emma gave up on her history project and retreated to her room, while the boys' argument escalated into actual yelling. By the time Ryan got back to the kitchen, dinner was ruined. Pizza? He called to the kids. A chorus of cheers answered him. Ryan ordered pizza, cleaned up the disaster on the stove, and tried not to feel like he was failing at everything simultaneously. That night, after the kids were finally asleep and the house had settled into quiet, Ryan found Ava on the back porch. She was wrapped in a blanket despite the warm May evening, staring at the dark yard. Hey, he said, sitting next to her. Hey, you okay? No. Ava's voice was flat. I'm not okay. I can't work. I can barely move, and this baby isn't even here yet, and it's already destroying everything. Ava, don't. Don't tell me it's fine or it'll get better, because right now I don't believe it. Ryan took her hand. What can I do? Nothing. There's nothing anyone can do except wait for this to be over. 2 more weeks. 2 weeks feels like forever. They sat in silence, and Ryan thought about how far they'd come and how far they still had to go. A year ago, he was barely surviving as a single dad in a cramped apartment. Now he was living with a woman he loved, raising 3 kids, and about to welcome a 4th. It should have felt like progress. Instead, it just felt impossible. I'm proud of you, Ava said suddenly. Ryan looked at her. What? For staying. For not running when things got hard. I thought about it. I know, I did too. But you're still here. Yeah, I'm still here. Ava leaned her head on his shoulder, and Ryan wrapped his arm around her, feeling the weight of everything pressing down, but also holding them together. 2 weeks later, on a Wednesday morning at 3:15, Ava woke him up. It's time, she said. Ryan bolted upright. Time for what? The baby. It's coming. Panic flooded through him. Now? Yes, now. Contractions started an hour ago. An hour? Why didn't you wake me? I thought it was false labor, but my water just broke, so unless this is the world's most elaborate false alarm, we need to go. Ryan scrambled out of bed, throwing on clothes, trying to remember the plan they'd made. Hospital bag. Where was the hospital bag? By the door. Keys. Phone. Call Mrs. Patterson to come stay with the kids. Mrs. Patterson answered on the 5th ring, her voice thick with sleep. Hello? Mrs. Patterson, it's Ryan. Ava's in labor. Can you come stay with the kids? Oh my goodness. Yes, of course. Give me 15 minutes. Thank you. Ryan hung up and found Ava in the bathroom, bent over the sink, breathing through a contraction. You okay? he asked stupidly. Do I look okay? Right. Stupid question. The contraction passed and Ava straightened, her face pale. We need to tell the kids. Now? They need to know where we're going. Wake Emma first. She can help keep the boys calm. Ryan went upstairs and knocked softly on Emma's door. She was already awake, sitting up in bed with wide eyes. Is the baby coming? She asked. Yeah, Mrs. Patterson's coming to stay with you guys. We'll call as soon as there's news. Emma nodded, looking younger than her 9 years. Is Mom okay? She's fine, just in labor. That doesn't sound fine. It's normal. It's supposed to happen. Emma didn't look convinced, but she got out of bed and followed Ryan downstairs. They woke the boys together, explaining in calm voices that didn't match the chaos Ryan felt churning in his gut. By the time Mrs. Patterson arrived, Ava was having contractions every 5 minutes and looked like she wanted to murder everyone in the house. Let's go, Ryan said, grabbing the hospital bag. The drive to the hospital was a blur. Ava gripped the door handle, breathing through contractions, while Ryan tried to remember if he was supposed to time them or just get there as fast as possible. He chose fast. They made it to the maternity ward at 4:30. By 5, Ava was in a room, hooked up to monitors, and dilated to 6 centimeters. By 6, she was at 8 and demanding an epidural that the anesthesiologist said was too late for. I hate you, she told Ryan during a particularly brutal contraction. I know. This is your fault. I know. If you ever touch me again, I'm filing assault charges. Okay. The contraction passed, and Ava collapsed back against the pillows. I didn't mean that. Yes, you did. Okay, I did, but I'll forgive you eventually. I'm counting on it, Ev. At 7:42 in the morning, after 3 hours of labor that felt like 3 years, their daughter was born. She came out screaming, red-faced and furious, and the nurse placed her on Ava's chest. Ryan watched Ava's face transform, exhaustion giving way to something he'd never seen before, something raw and overwhelming and entirely new. Hi, Ava whispered to the baby. Hi, little one. The baby stopped crying, blinking up at her mother with dark, unfocused eyes. Ryan felt tears streaming down his face and didn't bother wiping them away. She's perfect, he said. She's ours, Ava corrected. The nurse took the baby to clean her up, weigh her, do all the things that needed doing. 7 pounds, 3 ounces, 20 inches long, healthy and whole in theirs. When they brought her back, wrapped in a hospital blanket with a tiny pink hat, Ryan held her for the first time. She was so small, so impossibly small and fragile and real. What's her name? The nurse asked. Ryan looked at Ava. They'd argued about names for months, going through lists and vetoing each other's suggestions until they'd narrowed it down to 3 options they both tolerated. Sophie, Ava said. Her name is Sophie. Ryan looked down at the baby, at Sophie, and felt something click into place. All the chaos, all the fighting, all the impossible logistics of blending their lives together suddenly felt worth it. Hi, Sophie, he whispered. Welcome to the family. They brought Sophie home on a Friday afternoon to a house that had somehow gotten louder in the 48 hours they'd been gone. Emma had made a banner that said, Welcome home, Sophie, in crooked letters and hung it over the front door. Leo and Milo had apparently spent the morning arguing about who got to hold the baby first, and Mrs. Patterson looked like she'd aged 10 years. They've been angels, she said in a tone that suggested the opposite. Thank you for staying with them, Ava said, cradling Sophie against her chest like she was made of glass. Anytime, dear. Now I'm going home to sleep for 3 days. The kids crowded around the moment Mrs. Patterson left, all trying to see the baby at once. She's so small, Emma breathed. Can I touch her? Leo asked. Gently, Ava said, guiding his hand to Sophie's tiny fist. Leo's face lit up when Sophie's fingers curled around his thumb. She likes me, he said. She doesn't know you yet, Emma corrected. Babies can't see very well when they're born. How do you know? I read it in a book. Milo hung back, watching from a distance, and Ryan noticed the uncertainty in his son's face. You want to meet her? Ryan asked. Milo shrugged. I guess. Ryan lifted him up so he could see Sophie properly. This is your little sister. Half-sister, Milo said quietly. The words hit Ryan harder than they should have. Yeah, half-sister, but still your sister. Milo looked at Sophie, his expression unreadable. She's kind of weird looking. All babies are weird looking at first, Ryan said. You were too. Really? Really? You look like an angry potato. That got a smile. Did not. Did too. Ask your grandma. She has pictures. The first week with Sophie was chaos. She cried constantly. Long, piercing wails that started at 10 at night and didn't stop until 3 in the morning. Ava tried to breastfeed, which worked sometimes and failed spectacularly others, leaving both of them crying in the nursery at 2 a.m. while Ryan heated bottles and tried to remember if babies were supposed to eat this often. The other kids regressed in ways Ryan hadn't anticipated. Leo started wetting the bed again. Emma became clingy, following Ava from room to room and asking if she still loved her every 5 minutes. Milo got quiet, spending more time in his room, and when Ryan asked what was wrong, he just shrugged and said nothing. Ryan's probation at work ended with a meeting he'd been dreading for weeks. Martin called him into his office on a Tuesday morning, and Ryan sat down expecting termination papers. Your performance has improved, Martin said. Not dramatically, but enough. We're taking you off probation. Relief flooded through Ryan. Thank you. I appreciate the chance to prove myself. Don't thank me yet. I'm also denying your request for extended paternity leave. Ryan's relief evaporated. What? Why? Because we're understaffed as it is, and I can't afford to lose you for 3 weeks. You can have 1 week. That's it. 1 week? My partner just had a baby. And I'm sure that's very difficult. But this is a business, not a charity. 1 week. Take it or leave it. Ryan wanted to argue, wanted to point out that other employees had gotten full paternity leave, that this was discrimination, that it was wrong. But he thought about the probation that had just ended, about how close he'd come to losing his job entirely, and swallowed the words. I'll take it, he said. When he told Ava that night, she was feeding Sophie in the nursery, looking exhausted and defeated. 1 week? She repeated. That's all he'd give me. So what am I supposed to do after that? I can't go back to work yet. The doctor said at least 6 weeks. I know. We'll figure something out. Like what? Hire another nanny we can't afford? Ask Mrs. Patterson to work full-time? She's 67, Ryan. She can't handle 4 kids. Then what do you want me to do? Quit? We need my income. Ava's face crumpled. I don't know. I don't know what to do. Sophie started crying, and Ava tried to soothe her. But the baby just wailed louder. Ryan took her, pacing the nursery while Sophie screamed against his shoulder, and wondered if they'd made a terrible mistake. The breaking point came 3 weeks after Sophie was born. Ryan had gone back to work, leaving Ava alone with all 4 kids. Emma was at school, which helped, but Leo and Milo were on summer break and treating the house like a demolition derby. By the time Ryan got home at 6:30, he found Ava sitting on the kitchen floor, Sophie crying in her arms, Leo and Milo fighting in the living room, and tears streaming down Ava's face. I can't do this, she said when she saw him. I can't. I tried. I really tried. But I can't. Ryan picked up Sophie, who immediately quieted against his chest, a small mercy that somehow made everything worse. He helped Ava to her feet, set her on the couch, and went to deal with the boys. What happened? He asked them. Leo broke my Lego set, Milo said. I didn't mean to, Leo protested. It was an accident. You threw a pillow at it because you said my drawing was stupid. It was stupid. Dinosaurs don't have 6 legs. Ryan held up a hand. Enough. Both of you. Rooms. Now. But now. They trudged upstairs, muttering about how unfair everything was, and Ryan returned to the living room where Ava sat with her head in her hands. Talk to me, he said. I can't keep doing this. Working from home isn't working. The baby needs constant attention. The boys are destroying the house, and I'm so tired I can barely remember my own name. What do you need? I need help. Real help. Not just you when you get home from work. I need someone here during the day. We talked about this. We can't afford a full-time nanny. Then I need to go back to work earlier. Put Sophie in daycare. She's 3 weeks old, Ava. She can't go to daycare yet. Then what am I supposed to do? Ava's voice rose. Tell me, Ryan. Because I'm drowning here and you're acting like there's some obvious solution I'm too stupid to see. I'm not. Yes, you are. You come home from work and expect everything to be handled. You don't see what it's like during the day. You don't see me trying to run a company from my laptop while a baby screams and two 7-year-olds destroy everything in sight. That's not fair. I'm doing everything I can. So am I. And it's not enough. Sophie started crying again, and Ryan rocked her automatically, his own exhaustion making everything feel impossible. They'd been at this for weeks now, fighting, apologizing, fighting again, and nothing was getting better. Maybe we should get more help from Dr. Chen, Ryan said quietly. Therapy isn't going to fix this. Then what will? Ava looked at him, and Ryan saw something in her face he'd never seen before. Defeat. Complete, total defeat. I don't know, she whispered. I honestly don't know. That night, after the kids were asleep and Sophie was finally quiet in her bassinet, Ryan and Ava sat at opposite ends of the couch, not touching, not talking. The silence stretched between them, heavy with all the things they weren't saying. I love you, Ryan said finally. Ava looked at him, surprised. What? I love you, and I love our family, and I know it's hard right now, but I need you to know that I'm not going anywhere. Even though it's a disaster? Even though? Ava's eyes filled with tears. I love you too. Even when I'm so exhausted, I want to scream. Even when I resent you for going to work and leaving me here, I still love you. Then we figure it out. How? Ryan thought about it. We ask for help, real help, from people who actually want to help us. Like who? Like my parents, like your sister, like everyone we've been too proud to admit we're struggling to. Ava laughed, watery and exhausted. You want to call in reinforcements? I want to stop pretending we can do this alone. The next day, Ryan called his mother. We need help, he said without preamble. Ava and I are drowning. The baby's 3 weeks old, we have 3 other kids, and we're both working full time. Can you come stay for a while? His mother didn't even hesitate. I'll be there tomorrow. She arrived the next afternoon with 2 suitcases and a determination that reminded Ryan why she'd survived raising 3 boys as a single mother herself. Where's the baby? She asked the moment she walked in. Ava appeared from the nursery, Sophie in her arms, looking like she hadn't slept in a month. Mrs. Hayes, Ava said, thank you for coming. Call me Linda, and hand me that baby. You look like you're about to fall over. Ava surrendered Sophie without argument, and Linda cradled her granddaughter with the confidence of someone who'd done this before. She's beautiful, Linda said. Now go take a nap, both of you. But the boys, Ava started. I raised 3 of them. I can handle 2 for an afternoon. Go. Ryan and Ava went upstairs and collapsed onto the bed. They slept for 4 hours straight, waking up to the smell of dinner cooking and the sound of laughter from downstairs. Is that my mother teaching the kids how to make meatballs? Ryan asked, listening. I think it is, Ava said. They went downstairs to find Linda in the kitchen with Emma, Leo, and Milo, all 3 of them covered in flour and tomato sauce. Sophie was in a bouncer on the table, watching the chaos with wide eyes. You're awake, Emma said. Grandma Linda is teaching us how to cook. I can see that, Ryan said. We're making a feast, Leo announced, with meatballs and pasta and garlic bread. It smells amazing, Ava said, and Ryan heard the emotion in her voice. Linda looked at them, flour on her hands and a knowing smile on her face. You 2 look better, color's back in your cheeks. Thank you, Ava said quietly, for all of this. That's what family does. You help each other. That night, after the kids were in bed and Sophie was sleeping in her bassinet, Ryan found Ava on the back porch again. Your mom is a miracle worker, she said. She's had practice. I couldn't do what she did, raise kids alone. I can barely handle this with help. Ryan sat next to her. You're doing better than you think. I screamed at Leo today, before your mom got here. He spilled juice on my laptop and I just lost it, yelled at him like he'd committed a crime. Kids spill things. It happens. But I shouldn't have yelled. He's 6. He didn't mean to. Did you apologize? Of course. Then you did what you needed to do. You're not perfect, Ava. None of us are. She leaned against him. I spent my whole life trying to be perfect, building the perfect company, being the perfect CEO. And then I met you and everything got messy and I didn't know how to handle it. Is that a bad thing? I don't know. Sometimes I think the mess is the best part. Sometimes I think it's going to kill me. It won't kill you. You sound very sure about that. I am. Because you're stronger than you think, and because you're not doing it alone anymore. Ava turned to look at him. When did you get so wise? I've always been wise. You just weren't paying attention. She kissed him then, soft and slow, and Ryan felt some of the tension that had been living in his shoulders for weeks finally release. Thank you, Ava said when they pulled apart. For what? For staying, for not giving up when it got hard. Same to you. They sat in the dark, listening to the sounds of the house settling around them, and Ryan thought about how far they'd come. A year and a half ago, he'd been a single dad barely making it through each day. Now he was part of something bigger, messier, more complicated than anything he'd imagined. And he wouldn't trade it for anything. Linda stayed for 2 weeks, and in that time, everything shifted. She established routines that actually worked. Meals at consistent times. Designated quiet hours when Sophie napped and the boys did activities that didn't involve destroying furniture. She taught Ava how to manage breastfeeding and bottle feeding without losing her mind. And she taught Ryan that it was okay to ask for help instead of trying to be a hero. You're a good father, though she told him one evening, but you're trying too hard to be everything to everyone. You can't do it all. I have to try. No, you have to be smart, delegate, ask for help, admit when you're overwhelmed. That feels like failing. That's surviving. There's a difference. When Linda left, she hugged them both at the door. You're going to be fine, she said. It won't be perfect, but it'll be yours. Ryan's probation officially ended in July with a performance review that was actually positive. Martin even hinted at a possible promotion in the fall, though Ryan wasn't holding his breath. Ava went back to work part-time in August, with Sophie in daycare 3 days a week and Mrs. Patterson covering the other 2. It wasn't ideal, but it was manageable, and manageable felt like a victory. The kids adapted in fits and starts. Emma grew into her role as big sister, fiercely protective of Sophie, and surprisingly patient with Leo and Milo's chaos. Leo's nightmares stopped, replaced by a newfound obsession with building things. Legos, forts, elaborate cardboard structures that took over the living room. Milo struggled the most, sometimes withdrawn, sometimes acting out. But slowly, so slowly Ryan almost didn't notice, he started calling Ava by her name instead of Milo's dad's girlfriend. One Saturday in September, Ryan was in the garage looking for a screwdriver when he heard voices from the driveway. He looked out to see Milo showing Leo how to ride a bike without training wheels, Emma supervising with the authority of someone much older. You're doing it, Milo shouted as Leo wobbled down the driveway. Don't let go, Leo yelled. I'm not letting go. But he did let go. And Leo rode for 10 feet before crashing into the grass. He lay there for a second, then started laughing, and Milo and Emma ran over to help him up. Ryan watched them, these 3 kids who'd started as strangers and had somehow become siblings, and felt something tight in his chest finally loosen. In October, Ryan and Ava started talking about marriage. It came up casually one night after the kids were asleep. They were folding laundry, a mundane task that had somehow become their designated talking time, and Ava said, Emma asked me yesterday when we're getting married. Ryan looked up from the pile of tiny socks he was attempting to match. What did you tell her? That we hadn't decided yet. She said we should decide soon because she wants to be a flower girl before she's too old. How old is too old to be a flower girl? According to Emma, 10, which gives us about 8 months. Ryan set down the socks. Is that your way of proposing? Maybe. Is it working? I don't know. Try asking me properly. Ava laughed, setting down the shirt she was folding. Ryan Hayes, will you marry me? Are you serious? Completely. Ryan thought about it. They'd been together for almost 2 years. They'd survived moving in together, a pregnancy, blending their families, and approximately 17,000 crises. If they could make it through all that, maybe they could make it through anything. "Yeah," he said. "Yeah, I'll marry you." Ava grinned. "Yeah?" "Yeah." She kissed him over a pile of unfolded laundry, and Ryan thought about how nothing about their relationship had gone according to plan, but somehow it had ended up exactly where it needed to be. They got married in November in Ava's backyard, with 40 people in a ceremony that lasted exactly 12 minutes before Sophie started crying and had to be taken inside. Emma was the flower girl. Leo and Milo were ring bearers who took their job so seriously they barely blinked during the entire ceremony. Ava wore a simple white dress and looked more beautiful than Ryan had ever seen her. Ryan wore the same suit he'd worn to their first date and tried not to cry when Ava said her vows. "I promise to show up," she said, "even when it's hard, even when work is calling and I want to hide. I promise to be here. I promise to ask for help," Ryan said, "to stop pretending I can do everything alone, and to love you and these kids with everything I have." They exchanged rings, kissed while everyone cheered, and officially became a family. The reception was chaos. The kids ran wild in the backyard. Sophie cried through the toasts. The caterer delivered the wrong dessert, and none of it mattered because they were together. Ryan's mother cornered him near the cake table. "You did good, sweetheart," she said. "Thanks, Mom. She's tough, but she's good for you." "I know. And those kids, they're lucky to have you both." Ryan looked across the yard where Ava was holding Sophie, while Emma and the boys played some elaborate game that involved a lot of running and screaming. "I'm the lucky one," he said. That night, after the guests had left and the kids were asleep and the house was finally quiet, Ryan and Ava sat on their bed, still in their wedding clothes, too exhausted to change. "We did it," Ava said. "We did. I can't believe we actually pulled it off. The wedding or the marriage? Both." Ryan took her hand. "You know it's not going to get easier, right? We're still going to fight. The kids are still going to drive us crazy. Work is still going to be overwhelming. I know. But we'll do it together." "Together," Ava agreed. They sat in the quiet, and Ryan thought about the journey that had brought them here. Two broken people with impossible schedules and too many responsibilities who'd somehow found each other and built something real. It wasn't perfect. It would never be perfect. But it was theirs. The first year of marriage was exactly as hard as Ryan had predicted. Work continued to be demanding. The kids continued to test boundaries. Sophie grew from a screaming newborn into a screaming toddler with opinions about everything. Money was tight. Sleep was scarce. And there were days when Ryan wondered if they'd survive. But they did survive. One day at a time, one crisis at a time, one small victory at a time. Emma started middle school and became a straight-A student. Leo joined soccer and discovered he was actually good at it. Milo stopped asking about his biological mother and started calling Ava Mom without being prompted. Sophie took her first steps on a random Tuesday in March, and all four adults, Ryan, Ava, and both grandmothers who happened to be visiting, burst into tears. Ava made partner at her firm and immediately scaled back her hours, choosing family dinners over late-night conference calls. Ryan got the promotion Martin had hinted at, which came with better pay and actual paternity leave benefits for future employees. They settled into a rhythm that worked most of the time and failed spectacularly sometimes, and they learned to accept both. On their second anniversary, Ryan and Ava went out to dinner alone, a rare luxury that required coordination with 3 babysitters and a promise to be home by 10. 2 years, Ava said, raising her glass. 2 years, Ryan echoed. Feels longer. In a good way or a bad way? Both. I can't remember what life was like before this, before you and all the chaos. Do you miss it? Ava thought about it. Sometimes I miss the control, the ability to make decisions without consulting 3 other people. But no, I don't miss being alone. Me either. They talked through dinner about mundane things, upcoming parent-teacher conferences, Sophie's daycare tuition, whether they should finally finish the basement. Normal, boring, beautiful things that meant they'd built a life together. When they got home, the house was predictably chaotic. Emma had stayed up past bedtime reading. Leo had convinced the babysitter to let him have ice cream. Milo had built an elaborate blanket fort in the living room that would take hours to dismantle, and Sophie was somehow still awake, playing with blocks in her pajamas. "This is your fault," the babysitter said, but she was smiling. "They played you." "They always do," Ava said, handing her payment plus a generous tip. After the babysitter left, they herded the kids to bed through a chorus of protests and negotiations. When they finally collapsed on the couch, it was nearly midnight. "Happy anniversary," Ryan said. "This isn't what I imagined when I agreed to marry you," Ava said. "No?" "No. I imagined something more romantic, less exhausting." "Is that a complaint?" Ava leaned against him. "No, it's just an observation. This is messy and hard and nothing like I planned, but it's ours." Ryan wrapped his arm around her. "That's all I ever wanted, something that was ours." They sat in the quiet, listening to the house settle around them, and Ryan thought about everything they'd been through, the fights and the reconciliations, the sleepless nights and the small victories, the moments when everything fell apart, and the moments when it somehow came together. This was what family looked like. Not the perfect Instagram version with matching outfits and coordinated smiles, but the real version, with mismatched socks and forgotten permission slips and kids who fought and loved each other in equal measure. It was messy and imperfect and absolutely exhausting. And it was everything. 3 years after their first date, Ryan stood in the backyard watching his family. Emma was teaching Sophie how to do a cartwheel, both of them laughing as Sophie kept falling over. Leo and Milo were building something elaborate with sticks and rope that would probably collapse within the hour. Ava was on the porch with a cup of coffee, watching them all with a smile that made Ryan's chest tight. He thought about the man he'd been before all this. The single dad barely surviving in a cramped apartment, convinced that his life was settled and small and would never be more than that. He'd been wrong. Life wasn't about finding perfect people or perfect situations. It was about finding people willing to show up imperfectly, day after day, and build something together in the mess. Ava looked over and caught his eye. She mouthed something that looked like, "I love you," and Ryan mouthed it back. In that moment, watching his wife and his kids in the yard they'd somehow made home, Ryan understood something fundamental. Love wasn't about grand gestures or fairy tale endings. It was about choosing each other when it was hard, about staying when it would be easier to leave, about building a family not from perfection, but from commitment and patience and the stubborn refusal to give up. They'd started as two people drowning in their separate lives. Single parents trying to survive on their own, carrying burdens they thought they had to bear alone. And then they'd found each other, not in some perfect moment, but in the middle of their chaos. They'd collided and fought and struggled and somehow built something that worked precisely because they stopped trying to make it perfect. This was the truth that Ryan had learned, the lesson that had taken years of mistakes and reconciliations to understand. The best families aren't born, they're built. They're constructed from ordinary moments and difficult choices and the daily decision to keep showing up. Emma called out something about dinner and Sophie came running over with grass in her hair. Leo and Milo followed, arguing about whose stick fort was better designed. Ava stood up, stretching, and Ryan met her on the porch. "It's a mess," she said, gesturing at the yard. "It's our mess," Ryan replied. She kissed him, brief and warm, and they went inside together to make dinner for their imperfect, chaotic, absolutely perfect family. Because in the end, that was all that mattered. Not the struggles they'd faced or the mistakes they'd made, but the fact that they'd faced them together and they'd chosen to stay. That was the real victory. Not perfection, but presence. Not ease, but effort. Not a fairy tale, but something better, something real.